In the chaotic landscape of late 1990s file sharing, where Napster grabbed headlines and Kazaa dominated download counts, there existed a more sophisticated platform that treated music discovery like an art form. Audiogalaxy wasn't just another peer-to-peer network where users frantically searched for the latest hits. It was a meticulously crafted ecosystem that combined the democratic spirit of file sharing with the curatorial wisdom of music obsessives, creating something that felt less like piracy and more like having access to the world's most knowledgeable record store clerk. Founded in 1998 by Michael Merhe, a University of Texas computer science student, Audiogalaxy began as his senior project before evolving into the most beloved platform among serious music collectors. Unlike its competitors who treated songs as mere commodities to be hoarded and traded, Audiogalaxy understood that music discovery was a deeply personal journey that required human insight, not just algorithmic matching. The platform's revolutionary approach centered around its recommendation engine, which predated Spotify's Discover Weekly by over a decade. Users didn't just download music from each other. They received personalized suggestions based on their listening habits and the tastes of users with similar preferences. This system worked because Audiogalaxy attracted a particular type of user: the music nerd who knew that if you liked Godspeed You Black Emperor, you might also appreciate Stars of the Lid, or that fans of obscure Japanese noise bands probably had other sonic gems hidden in their collections. The site's interface reflected this sophistication, featuring detailed artist pages, user-generated reviews, and listening statistics that revealed patterns in musical taste. Users could see not just what was popular, but what was critically acclaimed, what was trending among specific subcultures, and what hidden treasures were being championed by the platform's most respected contributors. What truly set Audiogalaxy apart was its community-driven curation system. The platform featured a robust artist and album database where users could submit detailed information, album artwork, and reviews. This wasn't Wikipedia-style crowd editing. It was passionate music fans creating comprehensive profiles for bands that might never have received commercial recognition. The site's Stations feature allowed users to create radio-style streams based on specific artists, genres, or moods, with each station learning from user feedback to improve its selections. These stations became incredibly sophisticated, capable of understanding nuanced distinctions like the difference between shoegaze and dream pop, or the evolution of an artist's sound across different albums. The platform tracked detailed statistics for each user, showing their most played artists, recent discoveries, and compatibility ratings with other users, creating a social network built around musical taste rather than personal relationships. The technical architecture behind Audiogalaxy was remarkably advanced for its era. While Napster used a centralized server model that made it vulnerable to legal attacks, Audiogalaxy employed a hybrid approach that distributed both the file-sharing load and the recommendation processing across its user base. The platform's client software, called Satellite, was sleek and lightweight compared to the bloated interfaces of competitors like Morpheus or BearShare. Satellite integrated seamlessly with users' existing music libraries, automatically scrobbling listening data to improve recommendations and discover tracks that users might have missed. The software could identify songs not just by file name, which was notoriously unreliable in the P2P era, but by analyzing audio characteristics and matching them against the platform's extensive database. This meant users could find properly tagged, high-quality versions of tracks even when the original files had mangled names or missing metadata. At its peak in 2001, Audiogalaxy hosted over 15 million registered users and facilitated millions of downloads daily, but these numbers only told part of the story. Unlike Kazaa's focus on mainstream hits or Napster's democratic chaos, Audiogalaxy became the go-to platform for discovering underground and experimental music. The site's influence on indie music culture was profound. Bands started noticing significant fan bases in regions where they had never toured, connected through Audiogalaxy's recommendation networks. Record labels, initially hostile to all P2P platforms, began quietly monitoring Audiogalaxy's data to identify emerging trends and underground acts worth signing. The platform's user base was notably diverse geographically, with strong communities in Japan, Scandinavia, and Eastern Europe sharing local music scenes that would have remained completely unknown to international audiences without digital distribution. The depth of musical knowledge on Audiogalaxy was staggering. Users uploaded rarities, bootlegs, unreleased tracks, and live recordings that existed nowhere else in digital form. The platform became an unofficial archive for music history, preserving everything from 1960s psychedelic obscurities to contemporary experimental electronica. Unlike modern streaming services that focus on commercially viable content, Audiogalaxy's user-driven model meant that a song's value was determined by passion rather than profit potential. This led to the preservation and distribution of incredibly diverse musical content, from field recordings of traditional music from remote cultures to bedroom recordings by teenagers experimenting with 4-track recording equipment. The site's search functionality was sophisticated enough to handle complex queries like finding all live recordings of a specific band from a particular year or locating covers of obscure songs by artists from different genres. However, Audiogalaxy's sophisticated approach to music sharing also made it a prime target for industry legal action. The Recording Industry Association of America had learned from their somewhat Pyrrhic victory against Napster that shutting down file-sharing networks required more than just attacking the central servers. They needed to create legal precedents that would make it impossible for any platform to facilitate copyrighted content sharing, regardless of how innovative or culturally valuable that platform might be. In 2002, facing mounting legal pressure and the threat of catastrophic financial damages, Audiogalaxy reached a settlement agreement that effectively neutered the platform. The terms required the company to implement filters that would prevent the sharing of copyrighted material. But given that the vast majority of music falls under copyright protection, this essentially meant blocking almost everything that made the platform valuable. The transition period was painful to watch. Audiogalaxy attempted to comply with the settlement by implementing increasingly restrictive filters, but each update removed more of the content that users cherished. The sophisticated recommendation engine became useless when it could no longer suggest the vast majority of music in existence. Users found themselves unable to download tracks from major label artists, then independent label releases, and eventually almost anything recorded after 1920. The platform's community began fragmenting as users migrated to other services, taking their carefully curated listening histories and recommendation networks with them. By late 2002, Audiogalaxy had transformed from a vibrant music discovery platform into a hollow shell that could legally exist but couldn't fulfill its core purpose. The broader implications of Audiogalaxy's death extended far beyond file sharing. The platform had demonstrated that technology could enhance rather than diminish the experience of musical discovery, creating connections between artists and audiences that would have been impossible through traditional distribution channels. Its recommendation algorithm was genuinely superior to anything that existed at the time, and wouldn't be matched in sophistication until streaming services invested heavily in machine learning years later. The loss of Audiogalaxy represented a missed opportunity for the music industry to embrace a new model that could have coexisted with traditional sales while expanding the overall market for music. Instead of recognizing that platforms like Audiogalaxy were creating more engaged and adventurous music fans, the industry chose to eliminate them entirely, pushing users toward less sophisticated alternatives or driving them underground entirely. The cultural impact of Audiogalaxy's brief existence rippled through music scenes worldwide. Many of today's most celebrated indie artists gained their initial international exposure through the platform's recommendation networks, building fan bases in countries they never could have reached through traditional channels. The site's emphasis on discovery and curation influenced the design of later platforms like Last.fm and eventually Spotify, though none fully recaptured the community-driven approach that made Audiogalaxy special. Music blogs and online magazines that emerged in the mid-2000s often featured writers whose tastes had been shaped by discoveries made on Audiogalaxy, creating an indirect influence on music criticism and trend-setting that persisted long after the platform disappeared. The site's user interface design, with its focus on detailed artist information and cross-referenced recommendations, became a template that influenced music discovery platforms for years afterward. Today, streaming services generate billions in revenue and offer instant access to millions of tracks, but they rarely inspire the passionate devotion that Audiogalaxy commanded among its users. The platform's death marked the end of an era when file sharing felt like participating in a global music community rather than simply consuming content. Modern recommendation algorithms are more sophisticated in terms of processing power and data analysis, but they lack the human insight and curatorial passion that made Audiogalaxy's suggestions feel like personal recommendations from knowledgeable friends. The platform proved that technology could democratize music discovery without dumbing it down, creating tools that made both artists and audiences more adventurous in their musical explorations. Its legacy serves as a reminder that the most innovative technologies often emerge from understanding human behavior and cultural needs, not just solving technical problems. Audiogalaxy may have lasted only 4 years, but it demonstrated possibilities for digital music culture that we're still trying to recreate, showing us what we lost when legal fear triumphed over creative potential.